Hello, Alex here for StepByStepMusic.com. I am ready today to bestow upon you magical musical powers. Today's lesson is on finding or determining any note that you wish to find or determine on any bass or any guitar with any number of strings. We are starting at the very beginning today, no experience required, so let's jump right into it. I'm going to start by introducing you to your set of notes. The notes are named after letter names A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. These are 7 of our notes. We have 12 total, but these are 7. They get the names A through G. We can think of these notes as white keys on the piano. So I have an A here, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. After G, we start over again at A. That A is the next octave. If you need help with octaves, you can watch this video. But for today, I just want you to know that we have the notes A through G, and it repeats in both directions. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Once again, we call these notes natural. There's no such thing as a zombie note. I don't know why they're called natural, but that's what we're going to call them. A natural, B natural, C natural, etc. Of course, you may have noticed that we have notes between our natural notes. We have the black keys, yes, and they don't get a regular letter name. They are not natural. When you have an A, say, there's an A, and you want to go up to the next black key, that's going to be called an A sharp. So if you go one key to the right, it's going to be that note sharp. We'll take a different note. Here's a D. If I go one key to the right, we have a D sharp. Now we can go down as well. So if I'll start at the A again. If I have an A and I go down by one note or to the left on the keyboard, then I have an A flat. Yes, before you ask, these notes have multiple names. This A that can become an A sharp could also be a B, because if this is A, this is B, that becomes a B flat. So whether you call this note an A sharp or a B flat doesn't matter for today's lesson. Just know that they have multiple names. So that's the concept of how we name notes. A regular note is natural, so in other words, A natural. If you move it up, it's sharp. If you move it down, it's flat. Your first magical ingredient, one of 2 things that you need to know to find any note on your bass, on your guitar, is the string names. We need to know the string names. So I'm going to look at 4-string bass. I'm going to look at a regular 6-string guitar. We'll also look at a 6-string bass just to really hit it home, make sure that we have the concepts. Starting with a 4-string bass, here we are. Nope, that's not it. Starting with the 4-string bass, we have our string names. This is a diagram of the fretboard, and right now, I am looking only at this top section. So these notes at the very top, those are what we call our open strings. And that means that we're not holding down any frets at all. And I have to know what the names of these strings are. That is my first magical ingredient. This is absolutely required. So if you don't know your string names, start by learning your string names. Always starting off with our lowest string being our thickest string, and that's going to be on the very left side of your diagram. That's going to be my low E, my A, my D, and my G. From low to high, in other words, from thick to thin. Those are my string names for a 4-string bass. What's really cool is that on a guitar, your low 4 strings are the same. So here we go to our guitar version, and we will highlight those strings again. And again, these are our open strings, no frets required. Just that's the note that you get when you hit that string. Again, E, A, D, G, same as the bass. So we can take a look at that, E, A, D, G. And on the guitar, we're going to add the B and the E. Here's what that looks like. I've got my low E, then I've got my A, got my D, got my G, my B, and my E. Now on the guitar, we do have 2 E strings. We've got this low E and we got this high E. Wouldn't it be nice if we had some kind of clever term to describe the difference between these 2 strings? I've got it. Let's call this one the low E, and we'll call this one the high E. There we go. Now, on a 5 or a 6 string bass, it's a little bit different. Here you have your typical 4-string bass with the notes in sort of in the center of the neck on the 6-string version. If you were to go to a 5-string, you would usually include this low B. Of course, you could string it differently. You could string it so that you have this set of notes instead. But generally, if you go by a 5-string bass, it's going to have these notes on them. If you go to a 6-string, then you're going to typically include that high C. So here it is on a 6-string. I've got my low B, and that is so very low. We go to our E after that, then A, then D, then G, and finally the high C. Magical ingredient number 2 is the distance between your notes. You know your open strings, and now we're going to learn how to find any note on those open strings. I have here a representation of the major scale, and we're not here to do major scale today, but we will take a look at these half steps that we have here. We'll notice that we're looking at numbers here just to keep them generic, but we'll notice that most of these notes are a whole step apart. So a whole step being 2 frets. And we also notice that some of these notes are only a half step apart, a half step being 1 fret. So here's the rule. I'm going to tell you the rule, and then I'm going to go over it with you. So the rule I want you to memorize is it is always a whole step between natural notes, except, this is the except is the important part, except B to C and E to F. That is where these half steps live. That's B to C and it's E to F. Let's take a look on the fretboard. So using the guitar as a model, you'll notice that what I said is true. My goodness. Who knew? From D to E here, for example, just to pick something completely at random, is 2 frets. If I'm here, here is the open string of the guitar, and then I go up by 1 fret and I go up by 2 frets. And of course, this dot is where I'm going to hold my finger down behind the fret. So if I go from D to E, that is the distance of 2 frets. If I'm at a D and I want to go to an E, I go up the neck by 2 frets. But there are exceptions, right? The 2 exceptions that we learned are B to C, only a half step there, and E to F, also just a half step. Take a second, look at the diagram, soak it in. Notice it's always a whole step between 2 neighboring natural notes, A to B, C to D, F to G, right? Two natural notes that are side by side in the alphabet. It's always a whole step between them. That is a distance of 2 frets, with the exception of B going to C, just 1 fret, and E going to F, just 1 fret. So once you learn your string names and you learn the distance between the notes, now you can do what I call crawling up the string. You can go from the open string and go step by step, 1 note to the next, finding each consecutive note using your natural notes. If I know that I have my open E, it's my low string, that's an open. I know that because I know my open strings. And I think, okay, what's after E? And don't worry if you forget the alphabet. Everyone learning music has their brain strained so much that they forget the alphabet. I'm not even kidding. It's just a fact of life. So I'm going to have to go through the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F. F is the note after E. So I'm at my open E. I'm letting it ring right here where the open string rings. And I know the next note is F. And I think E to F, is that an exception? Is that not an exception? The exceptions are B to C, E to F. That's where our half steps are. Everything else is a whole step. So yes, it's an exception, which means that if I'm at I'm going to call this my 0 fret for the purposes of counting. If I'm at my 0 fret, then I'm going to go up to my 1st fret. And as we can confirm here, because it says so on the page, so it must be right, that's an F, right? That is an F. My 1st fret, that's an F. And so I can find this on my own. I can confirm it using the documents that I put in the description for you to download. I can confirm that that's an F. Okay, now I'm thinking, okay, after F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G F to G, F to G. Is that an exception or is it not an exception? It's not B to C. It's not E to F. It is not one of our exceptions. It is a standard whole step. Whole step equals 2 frets. If I'm at the F, I'm going to go up to the G, or I can show you using the first finger up to the G. If I'm at the 1 fret, I go to the 3rd fret. Again, I want to confirm that on this lovely sheet that Alex gave me. And it looks like based on Alex's sheet, yes, from F to G is a whole step. And by the way, these black things, those are supposed to be dots. So most instruments have dots at the 3rd fret, 5th fret, and on up. Those have no significance for us whatsoever. They're just on the 3rd fret and the 5th fret. Sometimes they skip the 3rd fret. Anyways, that's what they're doing there. That's how you crawl up a string. You take your open string and you go one letter name to the next, one note to the next, E to F to G, etc., on up the string. Now, if I get to a G, my next note is not H. My next note is an A, of course. And so here I see that, again, whole step to A, G to A, G to A, not an exception, regular whole step. And you'll notice that this A at the 5th fret, which is always true in our basses and not always in the guitar because of the B string, but almost all the time, our 5th fret is the same as the next open string. So that's how you can start connecting this, start making a linear connection. That's not in the scope of what I'm going over with you today. So just know that there is a connection there, and more importantly, know that you can crawl up any string and find any note that you are looking for. Let's take an example. Let's go ahead and say someone has asked me, let's do a really hard one. Let's say someone has asked me to play this note, or they asked me, what note is that? And they go, you're playing a note there. What note is that? And I go, okay, I'm at my 6th fret. I'm going to come back to this. I'm on the A string. Step 1, magical ingredient number 1. I know my open string. I know my string name. So that's an A string. It makes the note A. From A to B, not an exception. That's a whole step. From B to C, that is an exception. That's a half step. From C to D, not an exception, still a whole step. And now I want to know what this note is. Okay? Well, I'm going to go ahead and go to my next natural note. I'm at D. Now, notice we're off the page here. We are now off of our diagram, and we're adventuring into the unknown, into the beyond by ourselves. But I have Alex's magical ingredients, so I'm not worried about it. I'm at a D. My next note is E. D to E is a whole step. Okay? I'm right there. I'm on fret 7. Problem, I missed the note that I was going for. But I also know that if I'm at an E and I go down by just 1/2 step, I can call that an E flat. Okay. If I'm at a D and I go up by a 1/2 step, I can call that a D sharp. And you could tell the person that, of course, asked you what note is that you're playing. You could say, well, that's a D sharp or an E flat. And you'd be right. In that last scenario, I was saying that you are trying to determine what a note is. Now I'm going to go through what you do if you want to find a note. And I'll just say I want to find an F. And I start on my low E string. That's my open E. And I think, okay, E to F. That's an exception. I'm going to go 1 fret up to F. And there we have it, E to F. Now, let's say that F is a little low. And I go, that F was kind of low. It's not. I want a higher F. I want to go find myself a new F. Okay, I'll do that. I'm just going to start on my D string for this one. So I'm going to take D. That's my 3rd string from the bottom, my 3rd thickest string. You can see that there where the pencil is pointing, actually. So open D, D to E. That's a whole step. E to F. That's a 1/2 step. I have found, because I've been empowered to do so, I have found an F on my guitar. And I could keep going. I could find an F or a G or an A flat or any note, and so can you on your instrument. You can find any note that you're looking for now. All you need to know is what open string am I on, and then have the confidence to crawl up the string until you find the note that you're looking for. Here's your homework. Yes, you have homework. I want you to play through the first 4 natural notes on all of your strings. So here's my guitar fretboard. I'm going to play for my exercise, I'm going to play an open E. I'm going to play an F. I'm going to play a G. On your first 4 frets, that's cutting it off right here. Okay, you can do 5 frets if you want, whatever you want to. I just say first 4 frets because that gets in every note once, with the exception of the B. This B will be the same as this B if you're playing guitar. Play through your notes, your natural notes, and say them out loud. Talk yourself through it. Don't try to work faster. Try to work correctly without mistakes. So I have an open E. My next note is F. E to F is an exception. That's a half step. Okay, I'm at F. My next note is G. F to G is not an exception. That's a whole step. That's 2 frets. So talk yourself through it. Don't go fast. Don't guess. Feed your brain the correct information the first time slowly. That is the fastest way between 2 points when you're learning to play music or when you're learning to understand music. After you've learned all this stuff here, or after you've played through all this stuff quite a few times and you're starting to get confident, maybe you don't need to walk yourself through it quite so much. You don't need to say E to F. That's a half step because you're starting to learn where they are. After you're at that point, set yourself to a rhythmic standard, to a beat, to a timing standard. So put on a click, maybe 60 beats a minute, something easy. Put on a drum track. I find it's more fun to play with drums. But whatever you have available to you, put it on, something that clicks regularly, and play through it at your own tempo. Maybe you need 2 clicks before you go to the next note. Maybe there's still too much mental processing that's required for you to find the next note. So you should always be a little uncomfortable when you're trying to play, when you're trying to learn something, when you're trying to experience musical growth. You should be a little bit uncomfortable, but you shouldn't be frustrated. If you're too comfortable, you're not learning anything. And if you're too frustrated, you're still not learning anything. So put yourself on the edge of that cliff. Find where your edge is. Meet yourself where you are at and learn from there. That is your music lesson for today on finding notes. I hope you feel empowered. If you feel a little confused, like I said, that's okay. That is very normal. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that you made it to this part of the video, because if you're watching this part of the video, then you obviously made it to the end. I also appreciate your support. You can support me as I support you by subscribing to my channel, by liking the video, by making some comments, and that helps me bring you more material every single week. I love doing this. I hope you love learning it. And my name is Alex, and here's where you can find me.